The train hissed like it was tired of carrying broken hopes across the country, and when it finally stopped at the dusty little platform outside the town of Silver Creek, she almost didn't step off. Her gloved hands trembled around the small leather suitcase she had packed with everything she owned, 2 dresses, a worn Bible, and the letter that had changed her life. And she wondered for the 100th time how a girl who could barely speak above a whisper had convinced herself she was brave enough to become a mail-order bride. Her name was Clara Whitmore, though most people back in Boston had simply called her Quiet Clara, not cruelly, but with the casual certainty that some people were born to be background music instead of a song. She had always lowered her eyes when spoken to, always let others answer first, always swallowed her thoughts like they were too heavy to be heard. And yet somewhere inside her was a longing so fierce it kept her awake at night, a longing to be seen. To be chosen not out of pity, not out of convenience, but out of truth. The wind in Silver Creek did not whisper, it roared across the plains, lifting dust and skirts and courage alike, and Clara had to clutch her bonnet to keep it from flying away as she stepped down onto western soil for the first time. She searched the small crowd of men waiting for brides, some hopeful, some impatient, some looking as if they were buying livestock instead of meeting a future wife, and her breath caught when she saw him. He stood a little apart from the others, hat in hand. Shoulders broad from years of labor, his face lined not by age but by weather and something quieter, grief, perhaps. He wasn't smiling like the others, but he wasn't staring either. He looked uncertain, as if he, too, was wondering whether this had been a mistake. "Miss Whitmore?" he asked, his voice deep but gentle, careful like he didn't want to scare her. She nodded. "I'm Daniel Hayes," he said. "From Hayes Ranch." "I reckon, you've come a long way." She nodded again. And that was it. No speech. No graceful introduction. No charming laughter. Just silence stretching between them like a fence neither knew how to climb. Daniel cleared his throat. "You hungry? It's a bit of a ride to the ranch." She tried to answer. Truly she did. But her voice tangled somewhere in her chest, and only the smallest, "Yes, sir," escaped her lips. He studied her, not critically, not disappointed exactly, but thoughtful. As if trying to understand what he'd ordered versus what had arrived. The wagon ride was long. The sky wider than anything Clara had ever seen. She had imagined this journey 100 times back in her small rented room in Boston, imagined speaking confidently, asking about the ranch, telling him about her love of books and her dream of planting roses beside a wooden porch. Instead, she sat with her hands folded, answering his polite questions with 1 or 2 words, feeling each silence like proof that she had made a terrible mistake. Daniel eventually stopped asking. Not out of irritation. But out of respect. And somehow that made her feel even smaller. When Hayes Ranch finally appeared over the ridge, white house, red barn, field stretching gold beneath the sinking sun, Clara's heart swelled with something fragile and hopeful. This could be home. If she were braver. If she were different. Inside the house, Daniel showed her the kitchen, the washroom, the small bedroom prepared for her. Fresh linens. A vase of wildflowers awkwardly arranged on the table. "You don't have to decide tonight," he said quietly, standing by the doorway. "Marriage, I mean. We can take some time. See if this suits you." She looked up, surprised. Most mail-order arrangements didn't allow for time. "I don't want you feelin' trapped," he added. "Truth is, I'm not much good at talkin' either." That made her blink. He wasn't what she expected. He wasn't demanding. Or cold. He seemed lonely. That night, Clara lay awake listening to coyotes howl in the distance. Her heart ached not from fear, but from frustration with herself. She had crossed the entire country and still couldn't cross the distance between her heart and her tongue. Days passed. She cooked. She cleaned. She helped mend shirts and sweep floors. Daniel worked from dawn until near dark. They moved around each other politely, like 2 careful strangers sharing a roof. He never pressured her. Never even brushed her hand by accident. And yet something unspoken lingered. One evening, a storm rolled in fierce and sudden. The wind slammed shutters against the house, rain hammering the roof like judgment. Clara startled at every crack of thunder, memories of childhood nights hiding from shouting voices flooding back, memories she never spoke of. Memories that had taught her silence was safer than truth. A particularly violent gust tore one shutter loose, and Daniel rushed outside to secure it. Without thinking, Clara followed, rain soaking her dress, fear tightening her chest as she watched him wrestle with the wood. "Daniel," she cried. It was the loudest she had spoken since arriving. He turned, surprised. Another crack of thunder split the sky, and the old fear inside her split open with it. "Please come inside," she shouted again, voice trembling but strong. He hurried back, drenched, staring at her like he was seeing her for the first time. "You were worried," he said softly. She swallowed. "Yes." He stepped closer, not touching, just near enough that she could feel warmth in the cold storm air. "You got more in you than you think, Clara." Something in her chest tightened. "No, I don't," she whispered. I'm not what you hoped for." He frowned. "And what do you think I hoped for?" She looked down. "Someone confident. Someone who can host church gatherings and speak without shaking. Someone who isn't afraid of her own shadow." Daniel was quiet for a long moment. Then he said something that would change everything. "I didn't ask for a voice loud enough to fill a church," he said steadily. "I asked for someone honest enough to fill a home." Her eyes lifted slowly. "I don't need fancy," he continued. "I need truth. And you got that written all over you." The storm raged outside, but inside, something stilled. He wasn't asking her to perform. He was asking her to speak. "Why did you really come here, Clara?" he asked gently. "Not the answer you wrote in your letter. The real one." Her throat tightened. This was the moment. The fence between silence and courage. The place where shy girls either retreat, or rise. Tears blurred her vision. "I came because," she began, voice shaking, "I wanted to stop being afraid of my own life." The words felt raw. Unpracticed. True. Daniel didn't interrupt. "I grew up believing my thoughts didn't matter," she continued, breath uneven. "That staying quiet kept peace. That small was safe. But small is lonely. And I am so tired of being lonely." The confession hung between them, fragile as glass. Daniel stepped closer, not to silence her, but to listen. "Then don't be small here," he said. "Not in this house. Not with me." And for the first time in her life, Clara didn't lower her eyes. She met his. And something shifted. Not because she became bold overnight. Not because she transformed into a different woman. But because someone had given her permission to exist loudly, even if her loud was still soft. That night, as the storm passed and stars reappeared over the ranch, Clara realized something powerful. She had not crossed the country to become someone else's wife. She had crossed it to find her own voice. And perhaps, just perhaps, Daniel Hayes was the man patient enough to wait while she found it. But the real test of courage was still coming. Because speaking truth once is brave. Living it every day. That is revolutionary.